Hey everyone, Dukinus here with a video focused on the highly underrated Supercharge Mechanic and the Aksis fight. I haven't seen very much talk about the Supercharge Mechanic. A lot of players don't even know it exists, and the ones who do know about it haven't practiced with it. So because most of you watching this video probably don't have the basics down pat, I'm going to integrate an explanation of the mechanic into the video while also giving you my best practices and methods. If you already understand the concept behind Supercharge, the video might be a little slower than what you're used to getting from me. I'd still recommend hanging in there because I have a strong understanding, and I honestly think my strategy will become the standard within a couple of weeks. I'll start the video with a very brief explanation of what the mechanic does and how to activate it. I'll then explain why it's important to learn about it. To finish the video, I'll explain the current strategy for how my empowered team covers all teleports and discharge locations, as well as how we decide which empowered guardians will go where. Just a heads up, the gameplay in the background is my team 5-manning Aksis in only 2 rotations. It's not that impressive since a 6-man team has already beat Aksis in 1 rotation. I'm just showing you this footage because it's relevant and so you can see the true potential of the Supercharge mechanic. I'm trying to encourage you guys to learn and master it. So let's get started. As you all know, Aksis teleports 3 times in every phase. An empowered guardian has to dunk his back to stun him so your team can continue to DPS him. You also know there's 3 squares in the engagement, the squares that the servitors try to sacrifice to. Well, every time Aksis teleports, one of those 3 squares opens up and looks like this. Before the empowered player who is closest to Aksis slams him, one of the other 2 empowered players can discharge their empowerment into an open square. This gives every fire team member their full super, as you can see right here. The number one question regarding the Supercharge is, why should I learn this? There's more than enough time to DPS Aksis, so this mechanic could be seen as a way of complicating things. I'm thinking ahead. The heroic mode of the raid is being released this coming Tuesday. I can think of 2 good reasons why learning the Supercharge mechanic ahead of time could be beneficial. For starters, Aksis is going to have more health, so DPS will be more important. Obviously, having more supers throughout the fight will increase your DPS, either through weapon buffs, enemy debuffs, or direct damage from those supers. Currently, we all accumulate super energy from killing Shanks and Captains, then use those supers on Aksis in the damage phase. Heroic mode will certainly come with stronger adds, which means we might need to burn supers in the adds phase. We'll have that capability if we know our supers will be charged again before we DPS Aksis. Similar to the King's Fall raid, heroic mode might have challenges. Obviously the Supercharge mechanic was implemented for a reason, and that reason isn't entirely obvious in the normal raid. So I don't think it's unreasonable to expect a challenge in the Aksis fight that has to do with supercharging. For me, those reasons are enough to want to master this as soon as possible. So if you're like me, and you got this far in the video, let's talk about how my team is practicing and how I believe you should be practicing too. For every teleport, you will have 1 empowered player on the left, on the right, and in the middle. Even if Aksis is already on a certain side, you still position someone on that side because they have to cover the supercharge square when he moves. I've set my team up in a way that covers every teleport and supercharge combination, which we're going to talk about right now. Your left player will stand here, on this yellow square. Your right player will stand here, on this yellow square. And your middle player will stand halfway up these stairs. I'm going to run through the different scenarios that each empowered player will face. In this situation, Aksis goes right. Daft was the right empowered guardian, so he slams Aksis. As the middle player, I make my way to the middle square. I see that left is open, so there's nothing for me to do. Choco is left, and he correctly covers the left square. Here, Aksis goes inside. As the right empowered guardian, I slam Aksis. While I'm doing this, the middle player would cover the right square, and the left player would cover the left square. Look at this situation where Aksis goes outside. Choco covers the left square, while I turn and cover the right square. I supercharge the team, and JP, who is the middle player, slams Aksis. Last example. Aksis teleports left. As the right empowered guardian, I turn around and look for the right square to be open. Choco is on the left, so he gets ready to slam Aksis, while Electric, who is the middle guardian, supercharges the team in the middle. Electric was actually in the wrong position here. If Aksis went inside, I would have slammed him. It would have been Electric's responsibility to cover the right square, and he wouldn't have made it in time, which is why I recommend your middle player stands on the stairs in front of me right here. If you noticed, there's a pattern in the scenarios that I covered. I never have a guardian covering a discharge square in the same area that Aksis teleports to. That's because the square that opens up for discharge is never on the same side that Aksis teleports to. Further, even if Aksis goes inside, that still counts as middle, so the outside square won't be available. That's why the middle empowered player covers the right square when Aksis goes inside. because the outside square won't open up. I know I threw a lot of scenarios at you, and I know it's overwhelming in the beginning, so I linked a chart in the description that summarizes the action you should take for each combination. To get a bit of a jump on where you need to go, we have someone that isn't empowered stand on this platform and watch Aksis. As he prepares to teleport, notice the SIVA swirls that stick out. These indicate where he is going. So if the person on the center platform calls out where he's going, one empowered player can start making their way to where Aksis will land, and the other empowered players can think about and react to what square they're supposed to cover. So if a non-empowered player calls out that Aksis is going right, the right empowered player can start making his way to the right teleport, while the left player can move to the left square, and the middle player can move to the middle square. In my experience, we've always slammed Aksis as fast as possible. When he teleports to the side we're covering, our heart rate increases. The team is relying on us to slam him and keep things going. It's all on us at that specific moment, so we frantically slam him immediately to complete our task. With this added mechanic, you can't slam Aksis until one of your teammates has supercharged your team. When you slam Aksis, it closes the squares, so the discharge has to go first. My team has a system to make sure we get the supercharge and the slam. When I'm about this far from my square, I say supercharge. The guardian that is supposed to slam Aksis should be ready to slam by the time they hear that call out. By the time one player activates the supercharge, the other player will be right on top of Aksis and slamming him almost simultaneously. As you can see in these clips, I basically hover over Aksis until I hear the call out and then slam. If you're in charge of slamming Aksis in any particular position and you're worried that it's already been too long, you're better off to slam Aksis without getting the green light from your teammate. More often than not, they end up getting the supercharge at the same time as you slamming Aksis, and if they miss, at least you kept the engagement going. There's also a small window of forgiveness based on this clip. So like I said, I felt like I was waiting too long, so I dunked Aksis without hearing the call out just to keep things going. However, you can see my super bar fill after I already slammed Aksis, so there is a grace period. If you try to put the supercharge mechanic to work, you'll find it very stressful in the beginning. I'll be honest with you guys, I've had players drop out because it was too much to deal with. Be prepared to get frustrated and be prepared to fail. There are a lot of things to worry about. You're using your super 3 to 4 times each rotation, which is more difficult to accomplish if you're empowered because you have to get to your position. You're trying to get the Weapons of Light buff as much as possible if you have a Defender Titan. You're also trying to remember how your job changes depending on where Aksis goes. It might seem to make sense when reading about it or listening to me, but like anything, it gets overwhelming in the heat of the moment. The reason I'm bringing this up is, the last thing you want to be worried about is debating which empowered players go where because you already have so much on your plate. My team has developed a way to efficiently determine who goes where. We call this method the Alpha Bravo system. Like most teams, we have 2 people in each area, one of which is a cannon user and one of which throws SIVA bombs at Aksis. We call the SIVA throwers the Alphas and the cannon users the Bravos. Alphas take priority for empowerment in their area. If a Bravo player and an Alpha player are both empowered on the right side, it is the Bravo player's responsibility to move and cover the open side. This makes sense because the cannon users move around to shoot their servitor, so they're already on the move. Whereas the Alphas are the SIVA throwers, and since they always stay put to throw their bomb, they get priority in their area. As soon as empowerment is dished out, players call out their status and location. So if you're a cannon user on the right, you'd say Bravo right if you're empowered. If you don't hear Alpha right, you know you're going to cover the right side. If you do hear Alpha right, that player takes priority and you need to go elsewhere. In that case, if you heard the third player call middle, you know that left is open. If they called left, you know that middle is open. It sounds like a lot, but if you're saying your position, that means there's only 2 other voices to listen to, which I personally find is easy to keep tabs on. It is critically important that non-empowered players stay quiet. I know a lot of teams are already doing something similar to this, but I wanted to share our way since we've experienced really good results. So, that's the supercharge mechanic. There's more to cover, such as how to get the most out of each subclass's super, as well as the best subclasses to use, but that's for another video since this one is already running a little long. And since this was a long video, let's summarize what we talked about today. I think we can all agree this mechanic is pretty complex, but there's a good chance we'll need to learn it to beat heroic mode or possible challenges. By discharging your empowerment into an open square before another empowered player slams Aksis, you can charge your team's supers. I won't recap all of the teleportation combinations for time's sake, but remember I did link that chart in the description, which is a great summary of what we covered in that section of the video. Also remember that no matter where Aksis is, you should have one player left, middle, and right. The discharge square that opens up is never on the same side that Aksis teleports to. You can get the jump on where you should be going if a non-empowered player calls out where Aksis is heading by looking at where his SIVA particles are pointing just before he teleports. If you're the player who is slamming Aksis, wait on one of your teammates to call out their supercharge, but not too long that you miss the window to dunk Aksis. Keeping the fight moving is more important than getting your supers charged. I highly recommend your team adopts the Alpha Bravo system. And lastly, remember that this is a very complex mechanic, so don't expect to nail it first try. But, like anything, if you practice enough, you'll get the hang of it. And when you do, oh my god, this fight is so fun. Imagine ripping 4 golden gun shots or 40 fusion grenades every 2 minutes. It's honestly a blast, and I've been having a lot of fun melting Aksis. That's it for me today. I'm aiming to get one more Aksis video out that kind of ties everything together. You might not see me streaming as much this weekend since I obviously want to get that video out before Heroic Mode drops. If you guys enjoyed this video and took a few things away from it, make sure to drop kick that like button and let me know in the comments. Also, never hesitate to call me out on a mistake or build on anything I said. You guys know I'm always looking to get a discussion going. And speaking of going, I'm going to go work on my next video, so enjoy practicing the Supercharge Mechanic. You guys should hear from me in a couple of days. Duking us out.